You're listening to the Youth Critic Podcast on KHZ Network. Find us on Facebook at DecibelUNG Radio and find us on Twitter at DecibelUNG. If you like this episode, please leave a like and comment on our iTunes page at KHZ Network. And now for the podcast.
Why don't you talk to Robin?
I do. I just move in different circles, that's all.
Dear Cecilia, you'd be forgiven for thinking me mad. The truth is, I feel rather lightheaded and foolish in your presence, and I don't think I can blame the heat.
Righty!
Do you think you could do me a favor? Run ahead and give this to C.
Good heavens, you're blushing.
Celia!
Welcome to the Youth Critic Retrospective. I'm your host, Kel Smith. Joining me today is Brandon Cooley.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are kicking off the, next season of the retrospective series where I don't know if Brandon and I will be here for the next couple weeks, but each week we're going to review a movie that was nominated for Best Picture from the 2008 Oscars. So we're going to have we're going to talk about Juno, we're going to talk about Michael Clayton, There Will Be Blood, and then we're gonna and then at the end of the 4-week run on Oscar night, we'll have the final episode of this kind of mini season, talking about the Best Picture winner of that year, No Country for Old Men. And but for now, we're gonna start from, I guess, like the least popular, or at least the least well known, or the least recognized of the 5 movies, and that is Atonement.
Before we get to that, do we want to discuss I that was the first year I watched the Oscars, so it's kind of cool to be reviewing the movies 10 years later. Did you I always thought Zodiac actually got nominated that year. There's movies that were kind of snubbed, or because it was one of the best years for the Oscars in terms of the movies that were nominated. But what were your favorites that year?
Some of my favorite movies of 2007 were, obviously Zodiac, No Country for Old Men. What else? I'm trying to rattle my brain. I would dare put the first Transformers on there.
No, no way.
I would dare it. I dare to do it because it's I don't know. It's just a fun blockbuster, and I was 13 when I saw it, and it was a perfect movie when I was 13 years old. Now, I would put the Bourne Ultimatum on there.
Yeah, that would be on my top 10. I would put Superbad, Knocked Up. There's 2 great comedies of the year. Yeah. It's a pretty good year for movies.
Oh, yeah. It was a really strong year for movies. When Zodiac, as great as it is, gets kind of ousted out by 5 other movies. And I think, and, I haven't seen Michael Clayton or There Will Be Blood on this, adventure yet, but as someone who's going back and rewatching and watching these movies, it was actually a pretty strong year. Although I really think the reason why a movie like Zodiac got, pretty much outed was because it should have came out in December of 2006 and been a part of the 2007 Oscars.
Yeah, sure.
because the thing people forget is it came out in like March of 2007.
Mhm.
Like, I would even maybe it came out like the week or weekend after the Oscars. I mean, it was just like it should have been, and I think, and I want to dare say it was finished by like the end of 2006 anyway. So, just Paramount and Warner Brothers just shit the bed on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to it once we talk about those three movies. But I would say that No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, and Michael Clayton are the three. If I had to choose a winner out of the three, it'd be the hardest I've ever had to choose for an Oscar like winner. Like if I was voting in the Academy, like I wouldn't know what to do that year because they're three great movies. But we'll get to that later when we talk about them.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, even watching Atonement, a movie that I think is like people have very much softened over time. I think it's still a good movie. It's just as you'll find
I liked
out,
it.
it's kind of a terrible premise.
Oh, actually, I love the premise of it. Actually, we'll get to that in a second, though. But yeah,
but yeah, And I'll say, someone I have been following the Oscars, I think a little longer than you have. I think the first year I watched the Oscars was when Crash and Brokeback Mountain were nominated.
I didn't watch it that year. I watched the next year,
in
2006 when Jon Stewart hosted it. So.
Yep, I remember that too.
But I've seen the last 40 or the last 45 Oscar winners since 1970, though. So that counts for something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a miserable movie marathon, by the way. It's not as fun as it sounds. But
watching like the Best Picture nominees.
No, watching all the Best Picture winners for the last 40 years. Like it's.
Yeah.
There's been some bad ones out there, but.
I mean, to be fair, the Oscars, they always get the Best Picture wrong, in my opinion. Even when they get something that's like close on my top 10, I'm still like, yeah, but this movie kind of deserved a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I just don't know I don't know what else to say other than it was, but I can't deny that the movies they pick are mostly pretty good. Like they're good movies. Like I've never seen an Oscar movie where I went, "What the fuck were they thinking?" Oh wait, I did. It was extremely loud. I have. Yeah. Let me backtrack. It was extremely loud and incredibly close.
Yeah, I've seen
that
quite
was
a few of those.
Movie.
The Blind Side is probably the worst nominee in the last.
Oh God, I forgot. Yeah. I forgot about The Blind Side. I always forget The Blind Side got nominated for Oscars.
Yep.
And that's the movie where Sandy Bullock got that damn Oscar.
Which is just mind blowing, but yeah, it's. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we're kind of going off a tangent. But so Brandon, I want to ask you, what do you think of Atonement?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I saw it back in the day when it first came out on DVD in 2008. I watched it again last night. I was kind of doing stuff in the back, like I had it on the background. I wasn't really intending to like watch it and like analyze it, but I found myself like actually getting pretty interested in the plot and the characters. It's a pretty solid movie. I would say the first act is definitely the strongest part. The first 40, 45 minutes when it sets up the premise of the movie, not the premise, but sets up the characters and the setting and all that. I think it is flawed in terms of its screenplay. I think there's some things I would have changed about it, which we'll get to in a bit. But it wouldn't have made my list of top 5 movies. Maybe my top 10. I'm not exactly sure on that. I have to look back in the year and see. But what do you think?
It's very well directed, but and the acting is really good, but it is a really silly premise. I mean, the reason why everything happens is because of a message that got sent. Like a dumb... It's like the Emoji Movie. It's literally the plot of the Emoji Movie, or like the catalyst of it.
Not really. I mean, I guess his message was like a 1940s or 1930s version of a text, if that's what you mean. But no, the premise of it though is her, like the girl, which by the way, Saoirse Ronan, I forgot she was in this because obviously she's in movies now all the time. The actress that got to play her, like when she was a nurse in the war, was like looks nothing like Saoirse Ronan today, but it's just a random observation, which is kind of funny. But anyway, though, so Saoirse Ronan's character, though, it's about her misunderstanding what she saw and about the guilt she has. Yeah, the guilt she has from basically ruining these two people's lives, her sister and her and James McAvoy's character. So I mean, I think it's a good premise. You know, I mean that it would suck for that to happen. You know, and the in terms of its structure, I would change some stuff with that if I were to change anything about this movie. But you didn't like the premise though, like
it's just, I mean, here's the thing. It's one of those movies where you want to get involved in the story, but you're like, it's just kind of a problematic premise. It's like, so we're all going to believe this 13-year-old girl who, I mean, I guess, because we're not going to ask the person who, we're not going to ask the person who actually was, because what happened is in the story is, Bryony is kind of got a crush on James McAvoy, and James McAvoy's Robbie, and she kind of sees like sexual tension between Celia, her sister, and Robbie, and her jealousy kind of clouts her, kind of what she sees, and and I think the rest of the day or the rest of the week, whatever the timeline is before Robbie is arrested. But yeah, but in in the span of time, she gets kind of like this joke letter that Robbie wrote, but wasn't intended on Celia or anyone else to read, and so that kind of spews like even more, jealousy / crazy concern, whatever you want to call it, and then and then she witnesses her cousin being raped by someone, and she gets it completely wrong because her jealousy clouts her, clouts everything. It's just it's just, and then at the end of this fucking movie,
well, hold on, let's wait.
Okay.
Like okay, so the reason why I think this is kind of believable is you have to consider the time period it's in. Like for one, the upper class, rich kind of society would look down on James McAvoy's character because he was like the help, basically. He was gardening, he was helping around the house, and also the note, like today, it wouldn't seem as it's basically the 1930s version of sexting back and forth with someone, but back then it would be seen as being very obscene, like much more than what it is today. You know what I'm saying? So the evidence against him when she tells him that it was James McAvoy, it's pretty believable that he would be taken away and accused of raping her cousin. Now, in terms of her, like her seeing Benedict Cumberbatch and then either thinking it's him or accusing James McAvoy, I think it's believable, although I would have done something different. There's a scene where she jumps in the lake to hope that he saves her. I would have opened up with that scene of the whole movie and had because it's not entirely clear that she has a crush on him until it becomes more clear over time. But I don't know. I would have restructured the movie differently because it is not chronological. So,
And also the thing too about the movie is it really jumps in very quickly into the relationships in this movie. And while yes, you got to get to the war stuff. You got to get, to everything else that's happening, that's going to happen in the movie. Don't linger. That's fine. It's just, it's like 20 minutes into the movie, and Celia and Robbie are like obsessed with each other. And then 30 minutes later, Robbie is in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot. I think the steps to getting us to where we can believe, that Celia and Robbie are loving each other, and Bronny being really, Bryony is really jealous, and all the steps to take. It just happens way too quick, and then for me, I actually really love the second half until we get to the ending, and I just love, when we get to her, Bryony at 18, and we feel like the weight of, what, of her lie, and of her careless lie, and we feel, and we see, Celia struggling with it. We see all the characters struggling with it, and we see all the Dunkirk stuff. And with that be an incredible tracking shot. That's an incredible tracking shot, by the way. But and then we get to the ending, which we'll save it a little bit towards the end, but
no, we can talk about it now. It's fine.
But it's just, I have an issue with the ending because of how of how it comes out. It just comes out too much in favor of Bryony. In my opinion.
Ever? Or...
What?
Ever? Like, did you just say in favor of?
In favor.
What do you mean by that?
She got to tell, at the end, we're led to believe that she, before we get to Vanessa Redgrave's, or the old Bryony, we're led to believe that she is going to at least try and make atone, her sins for her sister and I guess her now brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. But at the end of this, but of course, it's cut to however many years later, and it's kind of implied that she's just now like, no, now that I'm dying, I'm going to write this story, and it's going to be 100% accurate until we get the story. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I want to give them the happy ending. And it's like, and I kind of just sat there when she said that, and I was like, bullshit. Bullshit. That's you just making yourself feel better because you did nothing. And you did nothing, and you basically Murphy's Law your sister's death and her lover. Oh my God, it's just.
That's kind of the point. That's the point of the movie. like
I mean, that is the point, but have that character be honest about it in her book.
She couldn't bear herself to tell the truth because she felt so ashamed of herself, and she was kind of admitting it, like on live TV. I'm assuming with the interview for the book. She's like a famous author, and so apparently because it's like her 21st book or something, and I mean,
book.
It's her last book, yeah, and so she's like making the point that I still feel guilt for this, even though I did it when I was 13 because it led to the deaths of both of them, or. I mean, it was the war, so maybe so what happened. But she feels guilt from what she did when she was 13. So, on the one hand, she wanted to tell the truth back then, but didn't have the chance. And that's the point of the movie. I mean, I don't think we're supposed to feel one way. I don't think we're supposed to think she's the hero or something. I just think that's the, she's not the villain either. It's just a flawed character, that made a mistake when she was a kid. And what are you going to do? It's not.
Yeah. And I say all this as someone who really, I don't want to say enjoyed the movie, but I was compelled by it. I was compelled by the kind of drama that, grew out of, this one kind of really shitty day. Really, one series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
Because it just, you know, that whole, like, I guess it all happens in one day. It just all, you know, it's like it really is just like misunderstandings. Then, you know, wrong thing gets sent, and then he's trying to apologize, and then it's just it's like a downward spiral of horrifying events. And for me, it is compelling to watch, you know, all of this unfold. It's just, and Joe Wright beautifully directs, like, almost every scene in this movie is wonderfully well executed to the point. And James McAvoy and Keira Knightley are incredible together in this movie. Like, it's incredible watching them and watching their performances, because you feel the weight. You feel the weight that this decision has put on these characters. So, yeah, it's for me, Atonement is one of those. It's a odd film, but it's a movie where I feel like it earned the Best Picture nomination because of its directing and acting. Because Saoirse Ronan and Knightley and McAvoy do a fantastic job, and even Vanessa Redgrave. And I don't. And let me look up real quick who was the other girl who played the movie, who played Bryony, but the cast just did really well. Romola Garari. Yeah, everyone did a really good job. Like, even, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch is sleazy as hell. So
yeah, I forgot he was in this. Yeah. I mean, I guess just personally, I would rather take a complicated, like, in terms of like movies like this. It doesn't have to be love stories even, but I'd rather take a complicated movie or a complicated plot that's flawed, as opposed to a simple one. You know, like, filmmaking aside, like, we were discussing Shape of Water right before this, and that's a love story that's just too simple for me to even care about what's going on. Like, and this screenplay is more, the screenplay for Atonement is more flawed, but it's just more interesting to me. Like, the concept of it, you know, of it's about a love story, but it's about a person who basically ruined one. You know, that's not done very often. It's kind of a downer, but, you know,
yeah. And I admire them tackling the issue forward about, you know, kind of going in this almost in this, you know, Rashomon style of filmmaking. But I still, but I don't know. It's just, I was just watching the drama unfold and what should be the consequences for these characters, and was like, Bronny, you kind of, it was sweet that you wanted to give them a happy ending, but, you know, but really your final novel should be as, like, accurate as possible and fair. And she does admit, you know, in all fairness, she does admit to everything that happens at the end of the movie, and in that interview, she admits it. But it's just like, why was it just sound? It just it didn't quite work with me, but I see why this was a Best Picture winner. So with that said, Brandon, do you have any more thoughts on Atonement?
I think we got to most everything. Cinematography was great.
Seems
I wouldn't
scurvy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the best of the year, but it was pretty good. Let's see, performances were pretty good too. I mean, yeah, all around. I mean, for me, yeah, all around is a pretty high, like, well-made movie. So I'm all about that. But I mean,
yeah,
I would say definitely the first act is the best. It's the most engaging in terms of catching. It caught my interest. I wasn't even like, I had the movie playing on the background. I was distracted watching the first half of the movie as opposed to the second half. So I was listening the whole time. But yeah, it was. But so yeah, that's about it. Not much else.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much to say either. It's a solid movie. I would give it a 7 out of 10 for the craft and the acting, but that's about it. It's a fine story. It's just some of where they took it, I don't know. I just don't agree with. So yeah. All right, Youth Critic listeners. So this is the first part of the Youth Critic retrospective Oscar series, I guess. I guess that's what we'll call it. And next week we are going to be talking about Michael Clayton, one of Brandon's favorite movies.
Yeah. Yep. I'm still not sure if Michael Clayton's my second or third favorite of the year. There Will Be Blood's very close to it, but
I'm very excited about this as well because this is the Tony Gilroy movie that everyone says it was the best Tony Gilroy movie.
Well, how many has he directed?
He's directed Duplicity, and The Bourne Legacy, and then he kind of has ghost directed all of Gareth Edwards' big blockbusters like Godzilla and Rogue One.
Okay.
Allegedly. Like that's the kind of a alleged thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we'll be back with you next week for Michael Clayton. And Brandon, where can the good people find you?
I'm still not on any social media. So.
Right. Sorry. And we'll and throughout we'll have a couple more guests come on and join for some of the other bigger films. But yep, this is it. You can find me at Movie Kale. You can also find me at the Youth Critic, and you can also follow me on. You can also follow the channel that distributes this podcast at KHC Network. Thanks, everyone. We will be back with you next summer.
See ya. You ought to call the police.
You saw him?
Yes, I saw him. I know it was him.
You know it was him?
I saw him with my own eyes. I love you. Come back to me.
They gave me a choice. Stay in prison or join the army.
My darling, I love you. I'll wait for you.
But no matter how hard I work, I can't escape from what I did and what it meant.
The story, what's it about? A young girl who sees something which she doesn't understand, but she thinks she does.
I will return. I will find you.
I'm very, very sorry for the terrible distress that I've caused.
James McAvoy, Keira Knightley, Atonement.